Welcome to Access, thanks to Crypto.com. Matthew Lloyd and Damian Barrett with you. The Cats and the Pies in the box seat, and the reigning premiers Brisbane Lions banged up and vulnerable out of week one of the 2025 final series. Lotto?
Dame, I'm looking forward to taking you through how I think Brisbane and Adelaide can turn things around, and also the masterclass of Chris Scott and what he did to win that first final.
I'm worried about an era potentially being lost with the GWS Giants, Lotto. They've had 3 years of consecutive finals for no result, and I feel it could be away from them. But let's get back to Geelong. Chris Scott, 15th year of coaching, a premiership in his first year, a second premiership in 2022, and pole position right now to go number 3.
Damo, they are my clear favourite now to go on and win this AFL Premiership in 2025, and it comes to my Crypto.com bold call about Chris Scott, and I think he'll go down as arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time by the end of this year, and then he's got, I think, another 4 or 5 years if he wants it at Geelong. So I want to go and take you through why I think he's one of the master tacticians, and that's what it centres around, the tactical nous of Chris Scott. And there was a 4-goal period at the end of the second quarter, before the reign of chaos, where he flipped this game on its head through tactical nous. So let's take you through what went on and where he flips the magnets. There he is, the genius. Many coaches are called geniuses, but here is, Jeremy Cameron. So Darcy Gardner went to him after he killed Leicester. And then De Koning, he's a centre-half back. He put De Koning in the ruck, moved Cameron up to the place. So I just want to show you how he spun the magnets to change the game. So let's not forget De Koning was centre-half back most of the night. Jeremy Cameron was flying in the forward line. Manor turned the game, but who bobs up and kicks the goal? So 3 points in it. There is De Koning. Next centre bounce, De Koning's back in the back line. Blixarves is in the ruck. We see Dempsey on the wing, Damo. And this play plays out, and you see that Dempsey's involved. Manor's up there again. Woes ends up kicking a great goal here. So that's just the next goal. So the next centre bounce. Dempsey's now forward. Cameron's on the wing. And so watch how this all plays out. So this was just a 4-goal burst in about 4 or 5 minutes, where Brisbane and Chris Fagan must be asking himself, what's going on here? How do I stop this? So Jeremy Cameron's now a wingman. Dempsey has flipped forward. So you look at the two, we're about to pause it soon, and 2's in the page. You've got Cameron and you've got Dempsey, and all the Brisbane Lions, you could see the chaos. They didn't know what was going on. Chris Scott has the ability, and you can't just do this on the day. You have to have trained for a lot of this. So here he is. Dempsey's the best at it. A lot of players saying, is he a wingman? Is he a forward? Where's Jeremy Cameron? Is he a wingman, a forward? Look who spits out. So then we get to the next centre bounce. So this is 4-goal burst. They are trying to free up Hugh McCluggage. So how do we get McCluggage into the game? But Geelong were good enough all night, so they tried, let's spit him as a forward. Mullen went with him. You got Tom Stewart and De Koning behind the ball, who we highlighted, Damo. So Mullen just went with him everywhere, and they adjusted the magnets all night to ensure Mullen stayed with Hugh McCluggage. So we put there, so then slowly it flipped it all out, where Brisbane players didn't know what they're doing. Here the two are who are free, Tom Stewart and obviously De Koning.
And Stewart was free to begin that whole passage of play because of the flipping of the magnets. We saw Paddy Dangerfield in the centre of the ground there, Lord. It wasn't a role that he had a lot of during the year, but he started in that part of the ground in this game. Again, there's levers that he's got to pull and that he's planned to be able to pull in September.
And Lawson Humphries was the other one who's been a magnificent half-back. He spent a lot of time on the wing. So I just thought they just did not miss a beat with the amount going on. And as I said, every coach you hear on radio says the hardest coach to come up against is Chris Scott, and he's coaching with a full, healthy list at the moment, David.
And that's the attacking side of the game, but they set up so well in defence, don't they, Lord? And I feel Connor O'Sullivan's season has been quite extraordinary for a guy who'd only had 1 game to his name before this season. But there are other names. I mean, Tom Stewart's back to his absolute all-time best in the last 6-8 weeks.
20 intercept marks on the night. So there was Sam Day, there was Gallup, there was Logan Morris, who had disappointing nights, but 20 of them. And what they do well is they always free up a player, but it doesn't matter who it is, because Jack Henry, he's a hidden gem. No one talks about him too much, but he's having a brilliant season and also had a great final. Zach Guthrie, he can intercept mark as well as anyone. Tom Stewart, O'Sullivan, so they can just keep flipping who the loose player is.
You're starting to drink this Geelong Kool-Aid, which I've been on for a long time, Lord. Let's continue it. Ollie Dempsey, look, it's no secret as to how good he has been already, but the game he played on this first qualifying final, Lordo, was quite extraordinary.
And he was on Levi Ashcroft, and Levi Ashcroft's in his first season, and they had to move Ashcroft off him within 15 minutes. So Ashcroft is still caught up in the play there. He didn't react quickly enough. look what happens. He bobs up here. So before time, and now this is Jared Berry, who did a better job, but not a great job. And Berry was too slow to react. This is just
no one's going with him in that moment. He started that play. He kicked the goal from a metre out, but he started that play in the back 50.
Yeah, and that's where he has a licence. Dempsey has a licence like no other wingman in the competition, which Scott allows him to play. And I thought he was the best man on the ground.
And we've talked about Geelong, how they dominated against last year's reigning premier, without arguably their best player being discussed yet. Let's do it now. Max Holmes and Bailey Smith as we talk about Holmes.
Yeah, I questioned Holmes maybe 3 years ago around, is he tough enough? And now he's as important a player to Geelong as anyone, and he just runs and runs and runs. Good luck trying to stop him. I reckon Windhager got him once, but other than that, he's been unstoppable all year. So how he wasn't All-Australian, I don't know, because he's just been a dominant force this season.
They did a number on the Lions, Lotto, and there's a lot of worries with the injuries they've now got. Lockie Neal out for the remainder of the year. Hipwood, the most likely out for the remainder of the year. They're already without Coleman. They're without Payne. They're without Ainsworth. And now they're out without their best players playing well in this qualifying final. Now, the jobs that Mullen and O'Connor did on McCluggage and Rayner specifically, Atkins also plays that negating role, but he's also creative. But this is almost a blueprint now, isn't it, for what we're about to see with what lies ahead?
Yeah, he was rattled, he was flustered, McCluggage, he was falling over, you see him on the ground a fair bit, and Mullen just doesn't relent. He was just at you, and this is a frustration. Rayner got lucky with a few cheap goals, but other than that, O'Connor beat him, and he was frustrated and angry. So, you talk about people think the tag is dead. Well, Chris Scott had two players do negating roles, and everyone just flipped around them. So it was amazing tactics from Chris Scott.
Yep. Lockie Neal, Lotto, he missed the latter rounds of the home and away season with a groin injury, and that's what I believe went first again against Geelong. And you can see him hobbling here. Ultimately, officially out of the match, it was a torn calf that has now left him out for the remainder of the year. But his body has been really, really problematic for them. They were worried about him actually blowing that groin with just the kicking motion going into the game. It effectively happened, and they're pretty vulnerable now without him.
We had him on 3AW about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he said, I didn't get a good pre-season, and I can't wait for the next pre-season to come to get a full one, because I'm just not where I need to be. I'm not as sharp, I'm not as dynamic. We all thought he was going all right, but he was really open in saying, I'm just not as prepared as I need to be, and probably caught up with him. Yep. He's been chasing his tail from one injury after another, hasn't trained as much as he'd like, and the end has come. They've
responded to adversity quite admirably, in fact, extremely admirably all year. They've bounced back from bad losses. They're going to have to do that again against the Gold Coast, aren't they? There are other leaders in the team. I thought Harris Andrews played a pretty good game under all circumstances.
Yeah, he was their best player, I thought, on the night. He destroyed Shannon Neal. Shannon Neal had a couple of moments in the last quarter, but for 3 quarters, he was keeping them in it. And it wasn't until they lowered their eyes and brought some players into it. When they were kicking long, this is what Harris Andrews did all night. So he just got no support. Their forward line was dysfunctional, I thought, the other night, the Brisbane Lions. So they have to sort out the forward end because their back line was pretty good.
The AFL staged the 2020 Grand Final in Brisbane, Lotto, for the COVID reasons in 2020. This game we've got upcoming on Saturday, Gold Coast Suns versus Brisbane. It's as big a moment for Queensland footy as that. They're going to have to find something that they didn't find against Geelong, though, the Lions. And what's it going to be?
Yeah, well, I'm really worried about Gallup, so Sam Day. They've replaced Hipwood and Danaher with Gallup, Sam Day, and Logan Morris is having to shoulder too much. And he looks tired to me. So what I would do is I would mix things up. And because Sam Collins will be too good for them. He was too good for the Fremantle forwards. So I would go smaller and I would open up the whole forward 50 for Cameron Rayner. So we saw them do it. They tried it. So look at the space he's got. They said, good luck, Mark O'Connor. And look at the way he's turned him inside out. I would open the whole forward 50 and say to the bigger players like Day and Gallup and Morris, play higher. And let's see if we can get players like Cameron Rayner and Zach Bailey, who in this position are scary. Even Kai Lohmann.
Yeah.
Give those 3 the 50. That's their way of winning this game.
And obviously Charlie Cameron needs to play, I'd say, 50% better than he has for most of this season for them to be a chance.
Yeah, they may have a big decision to make on him, to be honest, at the end of this season, with where he's just fallen down as a player. He kicked the first goal of the game and had one more disposal for the rest of it.
Yep. The other qualifying final winner out of week 1, Lordo, obviously was Collingwood. It did a number on the Adelaide Crows, and no surprise that their best player, Nick Dacos, was instrumental in that. It was a different game to what we've seen for a lot of 2025. It was a high-quality disposal game. There was not one wasted.
Spot on, Damo, and we wanted to show that because we've seen him have 40-odd disposals, but this was only 24, but as good as a 40 disposal game. So we've seen a lot of players, even, don't want to knock Sheasel, but he got his 50-odd disposals. But I love this 24 disposal game because it was just exquisite. In a final like this, to just be hitting players lace out, the time, the poise, and this one, not going onto his left foot, using his right foot, but just being able to angle it and kick a big goal. And you saw pretty early that Collingwood were on.
Down back with no Jeremy Howe, that was the narrative going into the game, and it was a worry for the Collingwood. It didn't matter. Darcy Moore and Braden Maynard just dominated the air. They dominated the moments, and ultimately what they did down back, Lotto's made everything work. Yeah,
Frampton was good. Quaynor was sensational as well. So they conceded 50 entries, but only 8 goals. So I thought that was the backbone of their win, how good their team defence was, and particularly Moore, Maynard. I just love I love this bloke. He is built for finals, Braden Maynard. He just didn't stop. He was too good for Fogarty. Fogarty was just a shell of himself by the end of the game, and he just didn't stop. And right on the siren as well. This is the end of the game. Watch Maynard. Just does another big bone-crunching tackle. And they wanted to get into him after the game, but he was in their face from start to finish.
We talked before about Geelong getting ready for September as the home and away season unfolds. Collingwood did that with Jordan De Goey, Lordo, didn't they? When they took him out of the play for an 8-week period just to get him right for this game. And he has added this game to his already impressive CV as being a great finals player. 2018 all the way through to a grand final. 2023 grand final. A 2022 series, Lordo, stopped short in a prelim final, but he was their best player throughout it. He is, outside Dusty Martin, in the Dusty Martin era, the best finals player we've seen.
Yeah, we're about to show a young Suns player who is trying to build towards that, who's a star on the big stage, similar to De Goey, but 26 disposals. Best on ground v Melbourne in the last game, dominant in this game. It's good signs for the Pies.
Jamie Elliott kicked 52 goals in the home and away season. It wasn't good enough for All-Australian selection, and he just thought he'd remind selectors, Lordo, that 4 goals in a qualifying final probably should have had him in that calculation. I thought he was supreme, Lordo, because he did it early, he did it late, and he did it at crucial times.
Yeah, young Bond, only in his 12th game of football, and the job was a little bit too big for him. Jamie Elliott, too smart, too crafty, kicked the first goal, kicked the last goal. What a player he's been. There was a period I worried that his body would never allow him to do what he can do, but he's been a star now for a number of years.
What happened to the Crows forwards, Lordo? Because they teamed up well all year. Walker was good, Thilthorpe was okay, Fogarty not so.
Yeah, I didn't like Thilthorpe's game either, but I love Tex Walker's game. But I thought the entries didn't help them, so they just launched from too deep. So you want to have one more pass. So we take a look at the vision. So you want to be hitting that. Don't bomb it from the wing. That's what Collingwood interceptors love. You look at them. They're setting up here to intercept. So we play this one out. It's just a long bomb on the head, and that's what Collingwood do. They get in and support each other. Scott Pendlebury looking to get at ground level. They jumped into each other a little bit too much, which they didn't need to do. Another long bomb launching. Darcy Moore, the king of intercept. And then Thilthorpe just lost his nerve. So we watched that one. He just didn't go there. The next one, Thilthorpe just...
He's got to go, doesn't he?
That's just a man lacking confidence. So he's an All-Australian player, loved his season. This one, it's been highlighted a fair bit. He has had to, don't argue, just run straight, kick the goal, wanted to handball it off, so totally lost his nerve, Riley Thilthorpe. Fogarty was disappointing, but their midfield also needs to be better, where they need to take it on and be a bit bolder this week.
Hawthorn has found a way regularly throughout 2025, Lordo, just to find a way to win a game of footy. There's different manners in which they do win, and they had to do it again differently against GWS. Their 5v8 final, they were well in control after the late in the first quarter through to the late in the third quarter, and that's when they set the game up ultimately. They then withstood the challenge.
Yeah, I thought that early on in the game, Damo, they were right on the GWS Giants, but then they just didn't execute. So they had the first 12 entries, but just didn't score from them, whereas Hawthorn I love this bit, the pressure of Hawthorn at this period. So they kicked 7 goals 2 to 3 goals 2 in this period, and that's what won the game, because the Giants had to chase for too much in this game. But then it was the surge inside. We're about to talk about John Newcombe shortly. They just surged the footy, and I thought to get 6 goals out of Ginnivan and Connor McDonald was massive in a final, where Connor McDonald also kicked a couple in this period. So the pressure, which you need in a final, Hawthorn were too much in the end.
Gave up a 42-point lead at late in the third quarter through to the start of the fourth quarter, Lordo. But John Newcombe, he's now played 3 finals, 2 last year, 1 this year. He's built for it. He's clearly their best player in these big moments, and it doesn't matter that Will Day's not there right now.
Yeah, I thought Newcombe wasn't at his best for, through the first half of the year, but the last 6 weeks he's been their best player again. I remember when he cracked in the it was Jeremy Howe, Howe was knocked out, and then he was best on ground after it. He's been dominant since then. He's the best and fairest winner. Thought he was best on ground again. 8 score involvements, 32 disposals. He's built for finals.
Yep, so too is the Hawthorn backline. And again, we talk about clubs preparing for September. The Hawks did that in last season's trade period. They got that man in, and he was an All-Australian this year in Josh Battle. And so too Tom Barrass, Lordo, stood up in these moments. It's allowed James Sicily, now that he's got his body right, to be the influential player that he has always been. And it also allowed them the luxury, that's Scrimshaw there also playing a role, to throw Weddle forward at key moments, which ultimately helped them win the game.
Yeah, there's Scrimshaw, who was brave as well. So I question, why did they get Battle and Barrass earlier in the year? But
there's your answer.
There's the answer. But what I thought they got wrong was they were trying to play Weddle, Sicily, Barrass, Battle, all in the same team. It just didn't work, whereas since Weddle has gone into a different role, it's really embedded itself well.
In 2025, the Giants had injury worries, Lordo, so I acknowledge that when I say this, but the 3 years of Adam Kingsley's coaching, arguably right now, it's a waste because of the dominance they've had. In that 2023 year, they lost that final by a point to Collingwood, preliminary final, but they'd won their previous 2 matches and were 17 points up in that particular game. Out in straight sets last year after leading by 28 and 44 points against the 2 teams that made the grand final. And then to retrieve that 42-point deficit the way they did inside 17 minutes of game time and to then go down again, they've had the ability in each of those 3 years to be making grand finals, Lordo. They haven't. It's a long off-season for Adam Kingsley and the Giants right now.
Yeah, they have to look at it. Adam has to look at himself and ask, why do we have such big fluctuations? And he'd also have to ask himself about selection. And this isn't a hindsight thing for me because I'm big on this. With injured players, you don't want to take too many in. And do you not pick 2 in the same role?
Referring to Jake Stringer and Jesse Hogan, both missing latter home and away rounds.
Yeah, so Kelly, yes, they got away with that one. In a half, he was awesome. But Stringer, you can just see his touch was off. And to pick both Hogan and Stringer, I don't think that worked.
Yep. Now, Gold Coast is playing the Brisbane Lions, Lotto, as we've said, on Saturday night. Matty Rowell's performance for the Suns against the Dockers in the elimination final. We've talked about some finals performances, Lotto. If you want to mount the case, this was the best of the weekend, we'll go for it.
Yeah, the most destructive player in the game right now is Matthew Rowell. And I say destructive is because they just needed the ball outside of a stoppage situation, Fremantle, because it's like an under-16 playing under 12s. That's how destructive that man is. He's powerful, and he had 11 inside 50s, 34 disposals, 11 inside 50s. He's a scary proposition for Brisbane this week with what he does. And it's Josh Dunkley's the player who'll probably go with him. And here's Humphrey. We talked about De Goey. We talked about Dustin Martin. Well, Humphrey, he's a goal kicker. He's a big moments player.
He's a big body too, isn't he?
He's big body.
And he wants to hurt people. I like that about him.
And every disposal he gets is high damage.
Yeah.
So he doesn't need too many to hurt you.
Yep. They had heroes, Lordo, and take us through how they actually won the game because Mac Andrew went forward in the latter moments of the game. Josh Tracy went with him, but it was a mess for the Dockers.
Yeah, this would haunt me if I'm a couple of players for the Dockers. So Patrick Voss has had a good year, but I want to show something. So they're up by, 6 points with 2 minutes to go.
This is old Fremantle too. Ryan kicking down that line.
Yeah, but this just has to go to ground. So you don't want to get outmarked in this situation. And Tracy, he loves to go back behind the ball to save the game. But Mac Andrew said, well, I'm coming with you and I'm going to look to hurt you. And Tracy just did not go. He
got 5 metres on him in no space, in no time.
So you have to be arm in the chest, smacking him, not letting... Mac Andrew's got the best leap in the game, but he just let him go. So Tracy, if you want to go back behind the ball, you have to do better than that. And then Mac Andrew draws the game. We know what happens with Swallow straight after that. So a few haunting moments for the Dockers.
Talked about the Giants having a long off-season. The Dockers will have one too, Lordo. And Luke Jackson, who I've praised all year and love and think he's the second best big man in the comp. He had a nilly night. In fact, he put them into the front with that big mark late in the game. But this happened prior to that. And again, these are not easy marks, don't get me wrong. But his touch was just slightly out.
Yeah, he had a wonderful season. Really liked what he did. But I think he's over this off-season. Plenty of bag work. He can get his timing right to just take his game to the next level by sticking some of those marks.
OK, it's Monday morning. I'm going to give you the out. You can change your tips between now and Friday and Saturday night. But Adelaide v Hawthorn.
I'm going to go Hawthorn.
I'm going to go Adelaide in that. And Brisbane Lions v Gold Coast.
I'll go the Brisbane Lions.
I'm with you on that. I think they'll regroup for at least one more week in 2025. Thanks for watching Access. We'll be back next Monday to wrap up semi-finals.